Married people to have affairs was breached. 4 major drugstores hacked this week. And we're also learning more about the information stolen from the U.S. government involving employees. So the question becomes, how do we protect ourselves? So joining me this morning to talk more about this is Corey Nachreiner. I apologize.
No
Corey
problem.
Nachreiner from WatchGuard Technologies. I apologize again. Corey, good morning to you. Good to have you.
Good morning, Bill.
Okay,
it's great to be here.
So who's the culprit? Who's doing this?
Well, really, there's 2 answers. You mentioned the government breaches, the Office of Personnel Management, and a lot of those breaches, it seems pretty clear that they're nation-state actors, places like China, Russia, and maybe other nation-states that don't love our government that are doing those. But then when you talked about the photo breaches like CVS and Costco and places like that, those are organized cyber criminals. Traditional criminals that used to do things like drugs and human trafficking are starting to move into cybercrime and making billions of dollars off it.
Okay, so how are they monetizing it? What are they really after?
So what they want is your PII, as we call it. It stands for personally identifiable information. Things like your email, your address, your social security number, your credit card, the answers you have for personal questions, because they can use that for identity fraud. They can use that to do credit card fraud and monetize that, and many other ways to monetize that personal information.
What's the biggest concern to me as a consumer? If I, for example, had my photos with CVS or with Rite Aid,
Absolutely.
and I was using that online service that was breached this week, what should I be most worried about?
So the things you really need to be worried about, obviously if someone gets your email and password, you're a bit concerned, but what you're really worried about is, 1, your password credential. Often when they steal these databases, they also have a form of the password you use to log on, and they can use that to log on to other sites you log into if you use the same password everywhere. And the other thing you need to worry about is your credit card. If they have your credit card, they could potentially do some fraud. So it's really important that you kind of monitor your credit card information and monitor that type of financial information if you're a victim of a breach.
Is that going to be our first heads up if our account is breached?
Is that?
I mean, typically, are we going to be looking for that and find strange charges or something? What's going to be the first heads up for us?
Hopefully it takes time for that to happen. So what's been happening is, in most states in the United States have something called a mandatory data breach disclosure law. That means if CVS recognizes they've been breached, they have to inform you as a customer. So usually the first heads up to you is either a news story from, say, Q13, or a letter you're going to get in the mail saying, hey, your account information's being accessed, and we're going to offer you some credit monitoring.
Okay, so what do we need to do to protect ourselves?
So I really think there's 3 P's to consumer security. 1 is passwords. Your passwords are really your credentials for your entire online existence. And there's all kinds of complex security tips to make sure you use good passwords. Use really long, hard to remember ones. Use different ones at every single site. Those are really hard for most people to follow. So my main tip is use a password manager. It's a program that will take care of all your passwords for you, and you just have to remember one thing. Another thing consumers should do is update all their software. It's the patching P. And that's basically, most computer programs nowadays have this thing where they'll automatically say, do you want to get the latest updates? Always do that. Most attacks on the internet are using flaws in your software that have been patched long ago, as long as you keep up with them. And the final P is just precaution. As you're doing things online, receiving an email from your bank with a link, just be suspicious of things. If you receive an email with a link in it from your bank, it may not be your bank. So don't click on that link. Rather, manually go to the bank yourself if you do think it might be legitimate.
It's terrific information. Corey Nachreiner from WatchGuard Technologies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
Great to have you this morning. Also this morning, parents in Edmonds are expressing concerns over a new sports field that's being built for their kids. They say this is a serious health hazard. We'll get into that when we come back.